We had a student who had been performing literally at 40%. We call that failing in the United States.
I'm guessing that's bad these days.
Yes. We got the student into this adaptive mode. On his very next test, he got 100%.
40
Think
to
about that,
100.
using
That
what
is
I'm talking.
tremendous. Imagine what that could do at scale if we, we give
Exactly.
every child access to this. John, hello. Happy Tuesday. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sanjay. Hope you as well.
I am glad to have you. I'm calling from Fort Lauderdale today. How about yourself?
In Virginia, near Washington, D.C.
Beautiful. I have some cousins out in Chantilly, so had a lovely Thanksgiving over there.
Yeah, I live about a half hour away in Leesburg.
Beautiful. Well, tell me more about the business. What are you doing for your customers?
So we actually have two businesses that are related. One is MyEdMaster, which is an education company, and we provide tutoring services for kids, and we also have a research program. The research program actually wound up suggesting AI-based products, so we spun off a company called METY Technology. And the kids actually get involved in it, so that's kind of nice. It's a great educational opportunity for them.
In what ways are they leveraging AI?
Primarily, the products themselves incorporate AI in them to personalize education. So rather than a one-size-fits-all, we use AI to assess students' individual learning needs, to create customized content, and to even adapt chatbots so when they're talking to them, they don't just get a standard answer, but the chatbots understand who you are and what you already know and can adapt answers to the questions accordingly.
How is selling AI to education? I know I've run into or been in multiple conversations where, people have kids in school and they're using AI. There's apparently checkers where it's almost like my time was calculators, right? So they were starting to embrace calculators, but they had a lot of control over when we could use them. Now the calculator, you can physically, see it and restrict it in the room. AI, especially for homework, is much more interesting. Are you getting a lot of resistance or more of an embrace at this point?
I think AI was a tough challenge, but then when ChatGPT came out and took the world by storm, and everybody's using it, whether you're a kid or an adult. So now all of a sudden, AI is mainstream. So I think it has a lot of acceptance. But the interesting thing is tapping its full potential in adapting education to student needs beyond just helping them write essays and things like that.
Talk about the student perspective these days. I know school is very, very different than my time. I think some of the greatest things was, I'm not saying for every school, but things like home ec and shop class and art and music were just a standard part of the curriculum, when I was school aged. And I'm learning a lot of people, I don't have kids, but people with kids tell me that that's more of a rarity or something you have to do on your own or after school. And it's not like you spend a day and you get to do all four of those things like I did.
Ironically, there are classes that are new, that are tech-based, for example, that we didn't have when, today's adults or parents were kids. But in many ways, it's still the same format, because if you think about it, all the kids get the same textbook, the same lesson, the same teacher, the same homework, the same test, even though they're very different. And I think one of the benefits that AI offers is not just teaching classes in AI, but to say, hey, we recognize that a teacher has 25 different students. She doesn't have the bandwidth to adapt her instruction to each individual student, but AI can support the classroom by doing something just like that.
Can you give a story, perhaps an anecdote of a particular student that really resonated with this approach?
Okay, so this is great, because one of the things that we're doing these days, everybody knows ChatGPT and Gemini and all these other chatbots. But in my view, one of the weaknesses is that the different students are all getting the same answer when they ask the same question. But they have different levels of knowledge. They learn at different rates. They have different learning styles. One of the things that we're doing is putting an assessment of what that student's knowledge and what he knows and, how he learns into the chatbot itself, so that the chatbot can then use that information to customize answers to help the student understand what I'm saying to you and fill in the knowledge gaps that you have. Now, with that in mind, what we're doing is we're now field testing some of these approaches. And what we find is students using this adaptive AI are learning much,
Hmm.
much better. So, for
Really?
example, we just got in a field trial that we did. We had a student who had been performing literally at 40%. So we call that failing, in the United States.
I'm guessing that's bad these days.
Yeah, yes. But my point is that when we got the student into this adaptive mode, on his very next test, he got 100%.
40
Think
to
about that,
100.
40% to 100% in one go, just by using the adaptive approach rather than the sort of standardized, everybody gets the same experience.
So the test itself was adapted to the student,
The instruction was adaptive.
but the test was the
The
same.
teacher still gave her normal test.
The normal test. Okay.
But we were able to tailor, okay, what does this individual student need to learn? Like, what is he getting and what is he not getting? And then we focus on that student's individual learning needs rather than giving him the standard lesson. And that made the difference. Now,
That's tremendous.
yeah, now
No,
not
go ahead.
every kid who gets a 40 is going to get 100 in one go. This is just to illustrate the power. But the interesting thing in that field trial, and this was done with an actual teacher. So in other words, this wasn't just like a lab or we stacked the deck. We field tested this in an actual class, and the teacher taught her normal stuff. And then the technology, we filled in the gap with the adaptive instruction. The average improvement was 29 points, so almost 3 letter grades per child who used this adaptive approach. On the other hand, the kids who just taught the standard teacher way showed only like 6-point improvement. It wasn't statistically significant compared to where they were. So think about that, 29 points versus 6-point improvement just by making the instruction adaptive. Using
That
what
is
I'm
tremendous. Imagine what that could do at scale if we, give
Exactly.
every child access to this.
And
Tell me
that's
more
the point.
about the origin story. How did this all get started?
Well, I'll try to make a long story short. I'm a poor kid from Brooklyn, New York. I got a scholarship to go to the most prestigious high school in the U.S., Phillips Exeter Academy. And everybody there had this sense of empowerment, like we're destined for success. And when I graduated, I thought every kid should have that sense. So I devoted my life, the last 40 years of my life, trying to achieve that and figuring, look, we need to teach kids to get the best possible education, but they're stuck in that one-size-fits-all model. So can we use AI to adapt instruction to each child's individual learning needs? And so I've been working on that for the last 40 years. And as we just mentioned, we're now at a turning point where we have something that's producing dramatic results.
That's amazing. What's the best way to get this to your student or into your school? Should they reach out to you or sign up your website?
Yeah, that would be great. John, there you go. That's our website, myedmaster.com. John, John, at myedmaster, as you see on the screen, .com. And right now, I'm willing to work with any school for free just to get this out so that it becomes the new normal. So I'm trying to seed the world with success stories so that it'll catch on and people will say, hey, this really works and it's easy to do.
That's an incredible contribution to the world. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Run your day with RUNDAY.AI.